You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hey guys, nice to be with you all again this week on the Mighty Blue podcast. This is episode number 528 of the show, and I have just 3 more shows to record before setting off to Atlanta and the Appalachian Trail on March the 9th. Then, a few days later, the first of my reports directly from the trail. And I don't know if I've already mentioned this or not, but I'll be producing 2 shows a week while I'm out there. We have the regular Thursday podcast and another one on Monday mornings as well. Now that, of course, is somewhat dependent upon getting service while I'm out there, but I'll be striving to hit those deadlines as closely as I can, so please bear with me. I've got some good news to report this week with a sponsor for the first 3 months of the show while I'm out there. You may recall Nina Banducci from Polar Steps a few weeks back, introducing that app into America and the backpacking community. Well, I already told her that I'll be using it on the trail this year, and Polar Steps have agreed to take those first 3 months as our main sponsor. I'll be recording that ad in the next few days, and it will feature prominently in the early part of each show when I get out there. If you're interested, you can follow me on Polar Steps and know roughly where I am on trail, with access to all the pictures I put on there. Hope you check it out, because it's free. Today, my friend Rob Diamond joins us. Rob is a guy who loves to serve people. He's a retired fire officer and wanted to bring suicide awareness to the trail, not only for the military veterans, but also for first responders, where it's also an issue. Rob had his own unique take on that, and we'll hear from him in a moment. He wanted to finish his hike on 9/11 for obvious reasons, and his story shows that with determination and an ability to overcome hurdles in your way, you can achieve what you're looking to do. Rob will be on in a moment. Then Tristen Murphy, a single mum, joins the Hike the Good Hike cohort, telling us about her own struggles as she navigates her life and plans to hike the John Muir Trail this year. Tristen gets quite emotional in that conversation, but like Rob, she's determined to face not just the trail, but also her own struggles with mental health. We'll hear from Tristen after Rob. Then my accountability blog once more. I've got most of the big stuff for the hike. It's just a case of getting it all together and packed into my pack right now. I also visited my doc for a last-minute check to confirm that I haven't acquired a hideous disease or two since I last saw him. Spoiler alert, I haven't. So let's meet my buddy from Hot Springs 2024, Rob Diamond, or Dog Tag. We've got a friend of mine on the show today. This is Rob Diamond, or Dog Tag. Hey Rob, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Steve, a.k.a. Mighty Blue.
Yeah, you have to remind me of my name. I seem to remember my name pretty well these days. You and I met I think it was about 15 months ago in Hot Springs when you responded to my call for volunteers to go and help in any way that we could after Hurricane Helene. What made you want to help in the first place?
Well, most of my life I've been in a job of public service, and having made the decision to hike the AT in 2025, I just thought, anything that I can do to help the communities and the trail and getting them prepped for my hike, I thought would be the right thing to do.
Sure. And it was quite strange, actually, because I think you already tried to help, and it was quite difficult to offer help, wasn't it, up there in many ways?
It was. Right after Helene had hit, I saw that there was a huge need, especially here in Virginia and Tennessee area. So I loaded up my truck and with all my tools and equipment and headed down that way. But everywhere I went, they didn't want individuals helping. You had to be part of an organization in order to come in, which I guess I could understand, with the amount of damage that was done there. There's probably some people who do it for the wrong reasons, even though I was doing it for the right reason.
Sure.
They just kind of kept pushing you away. So that's when I decided to hook up with you and come help you.
I think in many ways, though, it's we knew we weren't even scratching the surface, really.
Oh, not even.
But it felt the right thing to do, and I still think it's the right thing to offer. If people don't want to take you up on your offer, that's absolutely fine. And I kind of do understand the please stay away unless we've got something specific for you. But I know that going through a lady's house and taking all her soaked stuff out of her house was a pretty sad thing for all of us. It was a sad thing for her, but I think she felt a bit relieved that at least it was outside the house. So I don't know, maybe that helped a little bit. You told us then that you were planning on a thru-hike in 2025. Back in 24, you told us this. But I remember you questioning whether hiking in 2025 was even appropriate. So how did you resolve that moral debate with yourself?
Well, I got to say that probably the biggest influence was Ramdino. I follow him on his podcast that he does every Sunday.
Yep.
And through his updates each week, he kept saying that they were doing a lot of work on the trail. The trail was passable in most places. And I just, I had done a lot of planning for it. And I just thought, well, if I'm going to do it, I need to do it. And if I get turned away at a certain point, then I get turned away. But I was going to at least give it my best effort.
And I know that your thru hike was going to be a bit of a logistical nightmare because of a medical issue. How did you plan a thru hike around a medical clock? Because that's what it was for you, wasn't it?
Yeah. I have ulcerative colitis, and it's a disorder that that tears your gut up. And I had to have treatment every 8 weeks. I had to go get an infusion every 8 weeks. And
right.
I had spoke with my doctor. She had given me a couple options of trying a different medication. We tried it in 2024, and it was just not as effective as the med that I was currently using. So I told her, I said, I'm just going to go ahead and plan for my infusions every 8 weeks. I have a sister that lives with me. She's retired as well. She was willing to come get me and bring me back home, where I would come home for a day, do my infusion, and then she would drive me back to the trail. And
wow.
That's kind of how it started out. First time I came home was March for my first treatment.
Right. And what impact does it have on you? Do you feel a difference afterwards or not?
Not really. The medication is very effective for me. When you're on the trail, diarrhea is not the thing to want to have.
Yeah, you get it plenty of other ways. Yeah.
Yeah. And with UC, that was my biggest problem. And when I first got diagnosed with it, I ended up losing 100 pounds of weight because of the ailment. And
wow.
when they finally got me on the right medication, I put weight back on, probably too much. It was just the right med to do. And I talked with my gastro doc, and she said, if you're willing to drive home to do this, then that's what we'll do. And so that's why I chose to come home every 8 weeks. And as you've said on your show many times, you don't want to get off trail any longer than you have to. So I always made the plan to have my sister pick me up. It was like when she picked me up the first time, it was from Hot Springs.
All right.
And so it was about a 6-8 hour drive from Hot Springs back here home. The next morning I did the treatment, and then I would get ready to get back, and we'd get ready to go back to the trail.
Good Lord. So you actually only never spent, for those visits home, you went home, had the treatment, then came back. So yeah. we often talk about the rhythm of your hike. Did it mess with your rhythm of the hike, or was it such a short period of time you just went straight back into it?
It didn't mess with me, and it was probably better that I tried to keep it as short as possible, because, when you have family at home and you live in a house, the honey-do list piles up when you're gone. And
honey-don't list is it going to be?
Yeah. And the longer you stay at home, the more things that seem to come up. So I tried to keep those visits as short as possible when I came home.
And totally avoid the honey-do list. Quite right too.
Yeah.
But then you got another diagnosis, and I've heard of alpha-gal before, but I don't really know what it is. Tell us about it and how it impacts you.
Well, alpha-gal is a tick-borne disease. My doc thinks I got it while I was on the AT.
Right.
And it basically makes you allergic to all red meats, pork, lamb. And some people, depending on the level of exposure that you have, some people have to carry actual EpiPens with them, just like if you had anaphylactic shock. Sure. There's been cases of people having alpha-gal and actually dying from from allergic reactions. Now mine, it's basically the same symptoms that I get with my UC. And so as long as I did not eat red meats and stuff, I was unaffected by it. And, when you're on the trail and you go into town and you splurge and you eat all the junk food that you don't get on the trail, that's when I would all of a sudden have my explosive
shocker.
Yeah. And I always at the time attributed it to the fact that I was now eating greasy food versus when I was on trail eating. I mean, I was pretty much a tuna chicken guy, the packaged tuna, packaged chicken, peanut butter. I kept my diet pretty simple on the trail. And I never had a single problem with diarrhea while I was on the trail. It was always when I came into town, and usually the day after is when I would always have an episode. And so I always attributed at the time it to the food that I was eating, being greasy and different. But it ended up being alpha-gal. When I got back, I had told my doc about it, because when I got back off the trail, my doc did a full physical on me. Very happy with my weight loss. I told him about some of my episodes with diarrhea. So he did, unbeknownst to me, he did a blood test for alpha-gal, and he called me on the phone the following week and said, "Rob, I got some news. You got alpha-gal." And I had heard about alpha-gal. I have a friend of mine that has it. Right. And like I said, it's been a lifestyle change,
But once you've got it, or is it incurable?
My doc says the best thing you can do is just avoid the meats, and that's the best way to do it. And they say after a number of years, you might be able to start gradually getting back into eating meats. Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, the only thing I miss is a nice ribeye steak that I would love to have.
I bet. It must be awful to go, isn't it?
Well, it's tough when you live with a family who are red meat eaters,
Oh, gosh,
and they eat stew. It's like bacon in the morning. I miss my bacon. That's probably the thing I miss the most is bacon in the morning. Wow. And it's been tough, to live without that. So
I just want to go back to the moment that you first articulated your family that you wanted to do this hike when one of your kids asked you about a bucket list.
Yeah.
Tell us what happened and what was the family's response to that?
Well, it was Easter of 2024. We were at my niece's house and we were all sitting around the table, and my kids, and I've adopted 6 kids, and they range from age 9 to 23. Wow. And we were all sitting around my table, and my kids were all talking about bucket list items, things that they wanted to do in their life. And then my second youngest son, Zach, we call him Bubba, he said, "Dad, what's your bucket list item?" And I said, "I want to hike the AT." And of course, my kids grew up on the West Coast. When I retired from the fire service, I moved here to Virginia.
Right.
And so I didn't know what the AT was. And I said, "Well, the AT is the Appalachian Trail." And they go, "Well, what's that?" And I says, "It's a trail that goes from Georgia to Maine." And my son said, "Well, how far is it?" I says, "It's 2,200 miles. And as I told you before, when we lived in Vegas, my wife is from Virginia. And so each summer we would drive from Vegas to Virginia.
Sure.
And I'd leave them here for the summer. I'd go back to Vegas and work. At the end of the summer, I'd come back and drive them home. And it was 2,300 miles door to door from the house in Virginia to the house in Vegas. And so my son said, "Dad, that's like walking to Vegas." And I said, "Yep." And he goes, "Why would you want to do that?" And I says, "You asked me what my bucket list item was, and that's what it is." So,
what do they think about it? Do they think that there's a crazy thing to do?
Oh yeah, especially at the time I was 62 years old. I was in pretty good health, So I had a nephew that was there at the time who said, "Uncle Rob, you're nuts." He goes, "You'll never do it." And he and I actually made a bet of $100. Well, he made a $25 bet that I wouldn't last more than 30 days. And then he bet me if I finished, he'd give me $100. And so he ended up giving me the $100.
That is very cool. Very cool. Now you're a bit of a big lad like me, but at the time you were over 330 pounds, which I don't remember that being the case. Did you speak with your doctor on how safe it would be, and did he offer you any advice on training that you could or should do?
Well, that was one of the stipulations that the family put on me, is that I needed to check with my doc and make sure I was healthy. And
Right.
so I went to the doc. He did he did everything. He did an EKG, thought he saw something that was suspicious, so he sent me to a cardiologist, and then they did some additional tests. They ended up doing angio on me, thinking that I had a heart block. And when they had me on the table there, you're laying there naked, and the doc says, "Well, I got good news and bad news for you." And I go, "What's the good news?" He goes, "Well, you got the heart of a 25-year-old." And I says, "Well, what's the bad news?" He goes, "Well, we're wasting our time here doing this." So I got the kind of blessing from my doc, and he said, "Rob, the only thing I'd like you to do is I'd like you to lose 30 pounds before you go on the trail."
Right.
And so that was in about April of 24. And before I stepped onto the trail, the day I stepped out on the trail, I weighed 299 pounds.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah,
Fantastic. Now, your name's Dog Tag, and I know that one of the motivators for this hike, apart from the bucket list item, was a conversation you had back at Trail Days in Damascus in 2024. And you were wearing a T-shirt, weren't you? Tell us about that T-shirt.
Yeah. Well, my daughter went to a military college. She graduated in the year 22. And she had given me one of their T-shirts, their class T-shirts, and it had the big number 22 on the back of it.
Sure.
And I was sitting in Damascus, and those of you that have hiked through Damascus are familiar with the Freedom Wheel, which is, as you go through the wooden arch to the right there's a military memorial that Damascus just put together to honor all of their veterans. And I was sitting over there, and this gentleman walks up behind me and he says, "Hey, are you with the 22 Foundation?" And I said, "No, I'm not. Why?" And he goes, "The 22 Foundation, we're losing 22 vets a day." And I was in the process of wanting to kill myself. And they talked me into hiking the Appalachian Trail as a form of healing. And so he said, "I thought you might be with them, so I wanted to thank you for what you guys did for me." And I said, "Well, I'm not with them, but I'm glad you're out here doing it." And so it kind of set an idea in my head at the time. And I talked to my daughter, who's in the military, told her about my shirt, wearing the shirt and everything. And she goes, "Well, Dad, when you hike the trail, why don't you bring attention to veteran suicide?" So that's what I did. And keep a long story short, basically, because I had the ability to laser engrave things here in my shop.
Yeah, by the way, if you remember, you engraved a key ring for me.
Yes, I did.
When you came to, which is really nice. And a water cup, which I still use.
Yeah. So I was able to engrave dog tags, and I thought, being military, it was a great idea that, looking that I was, initially it was going to be just for veterans. But because when I started talking to my friends about it, I'm a retired fireman. People said, firemen are losing their lives to suicide as well. And so I started looking into it and found out that first responders, we're losing as many first responders to suicide that we lose to line of duty deaths every year. We average about 200 firefighters a year to line of duty deaths. We're losing that many firefighters a year to suicide. And initially, suicide wasn't claimed as a line of duty death. They have recently changed it. So now, if they can attribute your suicide to a line of duty incident,
sure,
they will claim it as a line of duty death. And so, I started carrying dog tags, and I actually carried a black dog tag that had my QR code on the back of it, so that when people would ask me about it and they wanted to follow me, the QR code would take them to my YouTube site. And I gave up probably hundreds of those while I was on the trail.
Good, cool. You're not as dumb as I look. And you reached out to a previous guest on the show, George Eshelman, or Keeper.
Yes, Keeper.
And George took name tags with him. Why did you pick dog tags? Was that just an alternative name tag, or was it because of the engraving thing?
Well, mostly the engraving thing. It was the easiest thing for me to do, because I had asked George about carrying name tapes, and because when I talked with him, he mentioned that he had hundreds of names that he didn't actually get to embroider and carry. So I said, "Well, do you want me to carry those names?" And he was kind of very protective of his names. He didn't want to he wanted me to go find my own names. And so I didn't want to do the name tapes because he'd already done it. And I just thought that I needed something that would bring attention on the trail that, when people would see it, it would send a message. And of course, the weight factor, people, they see this big bundle of dog tags. Yeah. They go, why would you want to carry those? And I said, well, it opens the door for conversation.
Yeah, damn right. Yeah. And sorry, I was interested in what goes on each tag. What do you put on there? I mean, it's quite a small thing to put on there. So what do you engrave on there?
I engrave their name. If they had a title like firefighter, paramedic, or in the military, if there was a sergeant or different thing, I'd put their title, their branch, which either was military branch, or if they were in a fire department, I'd put the name of the fire department on there or the name of the police department on there. And then the last thing was the date of their death.
Oh. So, and this is not meant to be a silly question, but there must be a part of the engraving that feels the most personal. I suppose it's the date of death, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I only have one tag I take that back. I have two tags that don't have dates on them. And because families are some people did not want to give me information. They were worried that it would go public, and they don't like people. They don't like to be very public about
what's that noise?
That was my wife calling me on my cell phone.
All right.
But,
all right. Okay.
So, I mean, some people are very open about it, and some people are very personal. They don't want to share that information.
So how did you source the names on your dog tags then? You can't, and I wonder whether you actually met any resistance. So some people just didn't want it, or did people start coming to you? I mean, how did it work out?
Well, initially I went to any organization that catered to helping mental health within these organizations. And they would usually put me in touch with people. I'm a member of the American Legion, which is a military organization. They did an article about me and about what I was going to do. Several people reached out to me through the American Legion. And when I actually started on the trail, I had 184 dog tags. When I finished, I had 208. So as I hiked the trail and people would hear about my story, they would ask me to carry their family's dog tag. And so,
so that's a responsibility.
It kind of became a nice thing about me having to go home every 8 weeks, because I would collect names during that 8-week period. And then when I'd come home, I'd do my treatment, I'd get the dog tags engraved, and then I'd be back on the trail.
Wow. So did you ever see those people again? Once because if you're coming back off track. Oh, you did you? Okay.
There were two people that one of them was down in Georgia, in North Carolina, excuse me. I was walking and I came across two ladies, and of course, usually the first question people ask you, what's your trail name? And so I said, I'm Dog Tag. And they go, why are you called Dog Tag? And because I carried the dog tags on the outside of my pack, I would just often turn around and show them my dog tags. And they go, well, what are those for? And so then that would, like I said, it would open the ability to have a conversation about why I was carrying them and stuff. Well, this one young lady, her name was Joy. She started to cry when I told her the story. And her friend Jill, I said, I didn't mean to make her cry. And she goes, no, she just had a nephew commit suicide. And he was a deputy sheriff in California. And so we talked for a little bit, and I said, here's my information. If you want to send me, talk with his family, if they're okay with me carrying his dog tag, I'd love to carry his dog tag. And so she ended up emailing me or texting me his information. I went home, redid it. And one of the things that I jokingly said to them, I said, hey, if you want to, because these two young ladies, they do a lot of hiking. I said, if you want to come to Maine with me in September, I plan to hike Katahdin on 9/11. And, it was just something I threw out there, not thinking anybody would take me seriously. Well, on September 10th, I got a text message from Joy saying that they were in Baxter State Park and they wanted to hike to Katahdin with me the next day.
Wow, how cool. How cool is that? So you summited on 9/11 with them?
Well, they summited before I did, because I'm a slow I used to call myself Saw, a slow walker. But they got before. The weather wasn't really good initially in that day, so a lot of people, they wanted to hike up and get off the mountain. Me, I took my time. I was with Silverback, who you just recently interviewed, and we took our time, and we got lucky. When we got to the top of Katahdin, we had the best view that you could have asked for. Yeah.
Well, very appropriate at that time, I'm sure. And
yeah,
I was thinking about this morning when I was putting these questions together. You carried, and I think it added up to 4.5 extra pounds or something like that.
Yeah.
And none of us needs more weight when we're hiking the trail.
Yes.
But in your case, what did carrying that weight symbolize when the trail got hard? I'd imagine it pushed you through, didn't it?
Well, it's funny, Steve, because I've talked to people, and I'm sure you may have experienced it when you're out there, but there were times when I would be going uphill, and all of a sudden my pack would feel lighter. And it was like I'd have to turn around because I would think sometimes people would get behind me and were pushing me, and there would be nobody there. And so I don't know whether their spirits were helping me or whatever, but sometimes, they would help. I just felt like something was there helping me along on the tough times, and there were some days, and I think everybody experiences, there are days where you wonder, do you really want to be here? And each night when I'd look at my dog tags and I'd say, this is why I'm here. And I got to say something, Steve, that I didn't carry the dog tags 100% of the way. As I'm sure you're going to talk about my experience outside of Harper's Ferry when I lost my gallbladder. Yeah. There was
I shouldn't laugh, I know, but carry on.
But there was a young man I met just outside of Hot Springs. He and his wife were hiking together. Their name's Sour Patch and Mosey. And he's military. And he had a pack cover on the back of his back that had the 22 on there and had a saying on there. And he and I hiked around each other for a couple of days. And he came up to me one evening and he said, hey, dog tag, if there's for any other reason you have to get off trail and you can't make it, I'd be happy to carry these dog tags for you.
Wow.
And so I ended up later into Virginia. I started hiking with them as a tramily. And of course, when I went to Harper's Ferry, and then the day after is when I ended up in the hospital. Yeah. And he and Mosey showed up 2 days later. Hey, I'm here to pick up the dog tags. So
cool.
So they picked up the dog tags, and he carried them on the trail when I couldn't carry them.
That is good. That is a proper relay.
Yeah, so I can't take 100% credit for carrying these dog tags the whole 2,200 miles. I have to give Sour Patch a lot of credit because he pulled up the slack when I couldn't be on the trail.
Sure. And the hike got going, I think it was February the 16th. And
yes.
And you already mentioned you wanted to finish on 9/11. And that's difficult to plan. I've already had people speak to me who are going to come and join me on my hike this year and asking me when I think I'll be in certain places. And I really just don't know, Yeah. But for you, finishing on 9/11 was obviously important for obvious reasons. Did you constantly keep that finish date in mind, or was it merely aspirational? Was it something you'd like to do, or you were absolutely determined to finish on 9/11?
Well, it was definitely inspirational. Being a firefighter in that day kind of sets very heavy.
Sorry. I meant aspirational. I may have said inspirational. Yeah. I meant you were aspiring to do it. Yeah.
But yeah, we definitely that day was the day I wanted to finish.
Right.
Originally, my daughter, who was in the military, she's stationed in Hawaii. She was actually going to fly out from Hawaii and finish with me. And But the tramily that I was with, Mosey and Sour Patch, Mosey, she's a PA, and she's very logistical. And when she heard that I wanted to finish on 9/11, she kind of took upon herself to make sure that we did that. And so,
nice.
As much as I wanted to get it done on 9/11, it became the mission of several other people.
That's lovely.
And we made it happen.
Yeah. And your first pickup for the UC was in Hot Springs, as you mentioned.
Yes.
What did it look like going through? Because that was only 3 months later. 3 or 4 months. It can't have been great.
Well, to me, you could see a lot of the work being done, but there wasn't much difference from when we were there in November to when we got there in March.
Wow.
And a few businesses that had reopened, but there was still a ton of work being done in that town. I'm sure even to the day they're probably still working in that town, because there was a lot of damage done in that town and around that area. You're going to see it.
Yeah, Rob, I'm looking forward to seeing it when I go through as well. I mean, I'll definitely go back to Smoky Mountain Diner, which we went to.
Definitely.
We had three meals a day there when we were there, didn't we? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm a little bit hazy about the details of the hike itself. Once the IV visit was over from Hot Springs, did you start back further north and go Sobo back to Hot Springs?
I did.
Was that how it worked out?
I did.
And why did you do that?
When I went home in March, I kind of, thought to myself, why should I have my sister drive me all the way back to Hot Springs when I can do a 2-hour drive over to Shenandoah National Park, and then hike south from there? And my plan, I did some logistical thinking that if I left from Shenandoah, I could make it to Trail Days in Damascus in May.
Right.
And so that's what I originally had done. I went to Shenandoah, hiked for about 10, 12 days. And I got a text message from another group that I had been hiking with down south. It was Dr. Quinn and Optimus. And they had sent me a text saying, "Hey, Dog Tag, we're missing you. Why don't you come back south and hike with us?" Nice. So kind of that day I was hiking and I was thinking, I hadn't been seeing a whole lot of thru hikers. And I thought, well, maybe I should go back south. Well, that night I happened to look on Facebook and I saw a posting from a family member of a young guy that had died. And it didn't say he'd killed himself, but it died. But the way it was posting, and they were very vague about the information, I assumed that it might have been suicide. And he was a former Marine and former first responder. And so I reached out to my nephew. I asked him, and he confirmed that he had committed suicide. So that night I decided I'm going home. I'm going to engrave a dog tag for him, and I'm going back south. And so that's what I did. I went home that night, had called my sister. She came, picked me up. I went back down, engraved a dog tag for him. And then I had her the next day take me back to Hot Springs, where I met Optimus and Dr. Quinn. And then we started hiking north out of there.
Nice. And then you've referred to it as if you hadn't gone through enough already. Your body decided to give you another little tweak.
Yeah.
The gallbladder. So, yeah. and I know that you were pretty close to a pretty catastrophic incident, weren't you, effectively?
Yeah. I had been hiking with Mosey and Sour Patch, and Mosey is a PA. And the morning after we did Harper's Ferry, one thing you haven't addressed, at some point I got my vehicle back on the trail, and we did a kind of a unique hike where some of us would hike south, some would hike north. We'd pass in the middle. Whoever would get to the car, they would come back and pick the other people up. And we kind of hop skipped all the way up the trail doing that.
Sure.
And so I had finished Harper's Ferry the day before, and we were in Maryland. I was getting ready to hike south. And I just had the chills really bad, and I could not shake the chills. And it was in the mid 80s, almost 90 that day. Right. And Mosey looked at me and she goes, "Dog Tag, you used to be a paramedic. How would you be treating yourself?" And I said, "Well, I've been having this pain for a couple of weeks." And I said, "If I was treating myself, we'd already be in an ambulance headed to the hospital." And she said, "Take yourself to the hospital."
Yes.
So I drove myself to the hospital. They did a scan. The doc came in and said, "Mr. Diamond, we need to take your gallbladder out." And I said, "Does that mean I have to go home?" She goes, "No, you're not leaving the hospital. It needs to come out now." Right. So they did the surgery that night. One of the things that I had asked the doc before she did the surgery is I asked her if she could recover my gallbladder. And she goes, "Recover it? What do you mean?" I go, "I started with my gallbladder. I want to finish it." And she goes, "What do you mean start and finish?" And I told her I was hiking the Appalachian Trail. And I had asked her if I could get my gallbladder. I was going to dry it out and hang it on the back of my backpack with my dog tags. I just figured it would be another talk point. And And so she goes, "Yeah, sure, Mr. Diamond." Of course, she's just appeasing me. I was in the medical field. I knew she was just appeasing me. Well, that night when she woke me up after the surgery, I said, "Did you get it, doc?" She goes, "Yeah, it's out." And I said, "No, did you get the gallbladder?" She goes, "No, Mr. Diamond. As soon as I touched your gallbladder to get it out, it burst." And so she said I was within a day of it bursting while I was on the trail. And had it burst, I probably would have gone septic and gotten very sick. Yeah. And so she said I was very lucky that I got off when I did. and did it. And so because it burst, I ended up having to stay extra 4 days in the hospital on IV antibiotics. And so I got discharged that Thursday and was back on the AT that Saturday. I was hiking back on the AT.
Crazy.
Doc gave me permission. I could hike as long as I didn't carry more than 15 pounds. And I didn't do anything very strenuous. I didn't want to.
And you had your car with you, didn't you, as well? So how did that? So tell me, what did the day look like for you then? Because this obviously compromised your hike, and you said you didn't obviously do the 4 miles, but you did as much as you could. So what did you actually do? What did the day look like for you?
Well, what I would do is I dropped the tramley off at their start point. I would go to and when they would take off, I would actually hike out in the same direction they were for a couple miles until I'd get to a certain point. Then I'd turn around, go back to the vehicle. Then I would take the vehicle up to the meeting point for them, and I would hike down the trail, actually, a few miles. Sometimes it was 5 miles. And then I'd turn around and go back to the car and wait for them. And so we kind of did that for about 6 weeks. And it was during that period when I met Silverback, and he had a medical need. And we started hiking together, and, there were a lot of things by having a vehicle. It became a luxury for us, but it became a real help to, at one point on the trail, I became known as the shoe fairy because I had helped several hikers find shoes because they either lost shoes or their shoes were worn out. And I drove one hiker almost 100 miles in New York to find a pair of shoes so that he could get back on the trail. So some people were calling me the shoe fairy at one time because I had the vehicle and was able to help other hikers. And you asked in your pre-interview, you asked me, what did I get out of it? It was just the joy of being able to help other people on the trail.
Of course. And in fact, you referred to the miles you did as imperfect miles because they weren't, north to south to north as people want to do. Mentally, how did you accept imperfect miles? It's still what you did, considering what happened to you, is a fantastic achievement. I mean, you did about 1,800 miles of the trail, something like that?
Yeah, I ended up probably, if I actually track it, it was probably about 1,850 miles that I actually walked on the trail. And I missed a lot of Maryland and Pennsylvania. And at some point, I do want to go back and finish that, redo that area. Maybe when you're there, you're in that area, who knows? Maybe I'll show up on your back
come out and join us,
But, a lot of people would ask me, why aren't you going home? Why don't you go home? And I knew if I left to go home to recover, I would not come back. And so I stayed out there and just hiked when I could, helped when I could, and just there's so much about the trail that you just get from healing. It was a great place to heal, on the trail.
Definitely. And of course, you did reach Katahdin.
Yeah.
Thanks to Mosey, obviously, and your car on 9/11. So how emotional was that for you?
It was tough. Because, I had seen other people's videos when they hiked that last 50 yards, when they can see the sign and they, when they get to the sign and, it was tough. The one thing I did when I got there is I called my daughter in Hawaii. I had a signal, so I called her, and she was the first one I wanted to let know that I had made it.
Yeah, sure.
And of course, it's tearjerker, and the one thing that in the back of my head I kept hearing was Steve, aka Mighty Blue, was saying, "Make sure you get a good picture on the sign."
That's quite right too.
And so my original picture, I was just standing behind it, because those of you that haven't been there, it's about a 3.5-foot step up to get onto the sign to be able to stand up on that sign. And initially, I just took a picture of me standing behind it. And then we waited there, and we were waiting for one of our other tramley to show up. And the longer I waited, I said, this picture isn't good enough. This picture isn't good enough. And so I asked Silverback, I said, hey, if I climb up there, will you get a picture? He goes, heck yeah. So then I ended up climbing up to the top of that thing and managed to get a nice picture of me up there, comparable to what a lot of other people do. So, that's the one thing.
That's a good one.
When you're there, you need to make sure you get that right picture. So
you have to think about it 500 miles out. Adopt the pose, get the pose ready. So 2 more things. What did you do with the dog tags?
Well, they're sitting on a table in front of me right now.
Right.
For a majority of them are there. This week, I actually mailed some of them out to the people. Joy, I had offered Joy the dog tag when we were at Katahdin, but because I had sealed the dog tags on these metal lanyards, I had a hard time getting it off. So I said, Hey, when I get home, I'll cut it off and I'll send it to you. And so for the last few months, I've been sitting there looking at them, thinking I should send these out. And so I sent her hers. There was another young lady that I carried a dog tag for her son. His name was Kyle. And I offered to send his back to his mom. And so I did that. Sour Patch, being military, one of the dog tags that I carried was for one of his soldiers. So I sent his dog tag back to him. And there's a few others that I've carried that I would probably like to return to some of the people that I carried them for.
It's a very meaningful thing, you know. I admire you for doing it. But there's one last thing. You told me in Hot Springs in 2024 that you were going out partly to earn respect from your family, but once you got back, you didn't feel they really thought much of the trip and so on. But what do you wish that your family understood about what you did?
I don't necessarily think that I wanted them to understand what I did. It's what I do for them each day. And that was what I was looking for more so than my trek, was to find some respect in the fact that, you know, I think, you know, not that my kids are self-entitled or whatever, but I sometimes wondered whether they really appreciated everything that Dad did for them. And so I thought, in my absence of 6 months, would they gain a better appreciation of Dad? And of course, I think, as I told you, the only time I heard from my family was when something needed to be done at the house or something was wrong or whatever. So, you know, did I get it? In the end, I don't think I did, other than from my oldest daughter, Savannah, the one that's in the military. She tracked me along the trail, and she really appreciated it. I'm getting ready to go see her in Hawaii here in April, and we plan to do some hiking while I'm in Hawaii. But yeah, that was what it was more so, was the fact that I wanted them to appreciate what I do for them every day. You can't make people do that, can you? Sir. It is what it is. Well, look, I'm pleased to have met you, proud to have met you. I'm proud that you took it all the way there, despite losing your bloody gallbladder, your UC, and your alpha gal, and you did made a tremendous effort. So I salute you for that, and I appreciate you coming and sharing your story with us. Well, thank you, Steve, and again, you were a huge part of my preparation. Listening to you on a weekly basis, your different stories from your different hikers. I never really thought mine was worthy of your show. I'm glad you think it is, but
I do.
You know, I've already started watching people who are hiking this year, and I look forward to following your story again this year. And like I said, I plan to see you out there.
That'd be nice. So, I really like. We'll share a beer somewhere.
All right? Sir. Yes, sir.
All right, buddy. We'll take it easy, okay?
Yes, sir. Dog tag out.
Cheers. Bye. I hadn't realised that Rob's journey had been so truncated. I mean, I followed him on Facebook and saw him as he made progress up trail, but all the medical stuff must have passed me by somehow. What a story, eh? And to have climbed Katahdin on 9/11 must have been the icing on the cake for him, and the rest of his family, of course. I mean, it's a special enough day for any thru-hiker, but to do it on such a significant day for a first responder, well, that's above and beyond. Nice one, Rob. We've got a couple of new donors this week, with Wayne Campbell signing up as a monthly donor and Rudolph Vandenberg making a generous donation. Thanks to everybody who continues to keep the show going. I'm never less than extremely grateful. And I know I don't mention it that often, but you really should check out our other podcasts on the hikingradionetwork.com website. One show that I'd particularly like to point you towards is Anna Huthmaker's Trail Danes podcast. Anna records them, and I produce these shows each week. Because I'm going away, I've been working overtime this past month, putting together the Trail Dames show for the next 6 months. And Anna has been reading a book, 48 Peaks, by her friend Cheryl Sukors. I'm mentioning it to you because it is really good. Each episode is only about an 8 to 10 minute section of the book, so it won't take you too long to listen, and it will build into a complete book over those 6 months or so. As I say, I highly recommend it to you, and it will start the week I go away in March. So check it out. Now, Tristen Murphy and Hike the Good Hike. Here's Tristen. Today we're going to meet the next member of the Hike the Good Hike cohort, Tristen Murphy. Hey Tristen, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, happy to be here.
You look terribly nervous, by the way.
I am. I've actually never done a podcast before, so.
That's okay. I've done over 1,000, so it's okay. It's no problem. And I know you're thinking about hiking all or part of the JMT in 2026. Tell us about your life right now, juggling motherhood, work, and your own passions, things you like to do.
Oh, golly. It's a whirlwind. I can say that out loud. I pretty much work with the time that I have, and it's not a lot. Previous years, the past 4 years, I've actually only had one day as a hiker to explore, and I would stretch that.
Oh, wow.
A 3.5 hour radius of a drive. I would just really travel to go, see where I need to go. I'm kind of in the middle of a transition right now where I have a lot of time to plan my adventures better and to make them a little bit more meaningful.
What's that transition? What's that transition? Is your child getting older?
No, she's 9.
They're all getting older.
They're always getting older. Yeah, I have always been a full-time worker. So on top of being a full-time mom, and then like doing everything that I can in one day, I would work full-time, and I actually am only working 18 hours. I've opened up my time so that way I have more time with my daughter, and
good.
It actually feels really, really good. And just kind of in the middle of a work transition too. I just do a lot of traveling for work right now, and that's difficult actually.
Sure.
Yeah, but transition is a good way to put where I'm at right now. You caught me in a storm.
And what about the things then? What is the struggle in terms of meeting your own passions, things you'd like to do, which obviously we're talking about hiking today? How difficult has it become to do that?
I wouldn't say it's difficult, but it's different. I'm finding myself explaining to my friends that I'm not experiencing my adventures the same way that I used to, since I'm now having to do it for work. Yeah. So I'm having a difficult time trying to separate my passions, my time, what makes me happy, where I want to go, and then also like surviving and paying bills like most people. But
yeah, we all have that.
It's difficult. Those. Yeah.
That never goes away. I'm 73. I'm still paying lots of bills. Yeah. Now you're navigating co-parenting while raising your, in your words, amazing daughter. How has that shaped how you think about your own needs?
That's a good question, because actually just before that I started this podcast, I'm opening another little rabbit hole. I'm trying to find more balance within our schedule, so that way it is fair shared time. Right now I don't have my adventures with my daughter because it's just kind of like how we share our time. You know what I mean? I have her primary time during the weekdays, and then he has her on the weekends, her father. And right. I'm learning that those core moments matter. Your children just won't see you if you don't set yourself aside from your regular routine as a stressful, chaotic parent. So literally this morning, I just had a breakdown, especially after I missed the call. I was just like, oh my God, I'm totally failing. Like just with everything, I'm so done. But I actually listened to a really good video about co-parenting before hopping on this call that kind of helped me air out what I need to and just realign that we're doing everything right. You know, we're doing our best as parents.
That's all you can do.
Yeah, that's all we can do.
I mean, I've told my listeners this, so I'm not telling anything I haven't said before. My son committed suicide at the age of 42, on an overdose. I don't know whether it was deliberate or not. I always felt that I raised that I did the best I could. It obviously wasn't good enough, and it certainly wasn't good enough for him. And frankly, sometimes you just need to forgive yourself, and you do what you can do, and then the chips will fall where they fall. Ultimately, you could try to guide your daughter the best way you can, and she could turn out great. And if your ex-husband does the same thing, she'll turn out great. But you just never know how these things are going to fall. Yeah. So you need to give yourself that time. I must say that one of the things I tried to do about a year or so ago was to give myself time to write the book I was writing before, and I got through about half of it, so I was pleased with that. And also to play piano, because I bought a piano to play, so I took an hour a day to do the piano. I've allowed that to drift a bit recently, but I think it's quite important to allocate time to do things you want to do as well as the things you have to do.
Yeah.
So making a point of trying to do that,
I screenshotted something this morning. It was a great quote. Since we're on like the co-parenting topic, I just want to drop it in here really quickly. This was like the game changer for me in my brain. It says, a mother who is exhausted, trapped, and resentful is a neutral variable. You don't have to martyr yourself to prove you're a good parent. You are protecting your daughter's future, but your well-being is part of that future.
It certainly is. It certainly is.
That last part.
And it's a bit like that line they say in the airlines, put your mask on first before you help others.
Yeah.
It really is. So when did hiking first become something that felt like yours and not just an activity that you enjoyed?
I would say, I would say 5 years ago, when I just kind of started to do it by myself. I was introduced to hiking by a girlfriend of mine. And then just the more we went out, slowly and surely, I started to realize, okay, different paces, different goals, different perceptions, different vibes, different energy levels. Sure. That's great. We're learning, you know what I mean? And then finally I just kind of did it by myself and I loved it. And then I made it a routine to do it every single Sunday. And I actually did hike every Sunday as a full-time mom, full-time parent, doing my thing for years, years and years and years. This is the first, what year are we on right now? 2025, near the end of it, there was where I cut back my hours and I started to give myself a little bit more time. And I'm slowly opening up to more community experiences on the trail. It is a little bit difficult putting yourself out there. The
community is the best bit. The community is the best bit. People are in the same boat. My old line is, you arrive at a shelter at mile 843 on the Appalachian Trail. You know what it took to get there, and they know what it took for you to get there as well. So there's this kind of mutual respect built in straight away. So you've done quite a bit of hiking, but have you done many overnights at all?
I've done some backpacking trips. My longest one was Highlander last year, where it was the 3-day. I've only done 1 to 2 nights. So that makes me really nervous thinking about what I'm going to be up against. But I think it's going to be okay.
It made me nervous for my first hike as well. It took me 400 miles before I did my first overnight by myself. And I was hiking around shelters, camping around shelters. This series of interviews with people from the Hike the Good Hike cohort is all about mental health and the benefits to be derived from hiking. From your own experience, how does hiking support your mental health, especially during kind of busy and emotionally heavy parts of your life?
It's hard to even put into words, to be honest with you.
Well, that's not helpful for a podcast.
I know, buddy. I know. It is hard to put into words. It's the only time that I feel like I'm strong enough to take on the rest of the week in life.
Oh, really?
You know what I mean? Yeah. It just builds me up mentally. I feel so bad. I'm really bad at talking on the spot.
It's fine. It's fine. You know what? It's a response I've had from a number of people already. So I can see, it means a lot to you, and it does something for you that other things in your life don't do for you. And it
just shows you're stronger than you think. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that's something you'll take from it. So why the John Muir Trail? And have you made your mind up if you're going to go for the whole thing or the 120-mile stretch that your notes suggest?
Well, I don't know if I can do the whole thing because I'm still partially torn if I want to take my dog, which is so silly. It's a thing. And I don't think Yosemite is dog friendly. Right. Also, I was probably going to go with a friend, and I don't know if that friend would be able to complete the whole thing. And then that's a thought if I could continue without her. But I have never done a hike that extensive in miles before. So I don't want to say that I can't do it, but it scares the crap out of me thinking about those miles and how many days I would be gone without my daughter too. I've also just like never been away from. That's tough, you know. Like, yeah, I think 5 days is the longest I've been without her.
Your daughter could do it.
She could do it. Yeah, she could do it. Yeah. But it's also a beautiful area. Like I travel all around California in the Eastern Sierras. This is just like a nook that I really haven't been able to see. Like the backcountry and everything like that. So I just am really excited. I think it's going to be beautiful. And yeah.
Well, I've tried to do the John Muir Trail. My listeners know this already. I've done the complete Appalachian Trail twice and various other trails, but I failed to do the John Muir Trail 3 times. 3 times I've tried it, and three times after 3 days, only because I took the out when it was presented. You know, so you know, I think you need to get your head right for the John Muir Trail, very much so, and realise it is quite remote, but it's the most beautiful place I've ever been. It's absolutely glorious. So you'll love it when you're out there. And I think if you set yourself up to do 120 miles, you're not going to want to go home. You're going to want to carry on doing the rest of the way. Anyway, so you're pretty confident about your hiking ability, having done a fair bit, or at least that's what it says in your notes. Do you ever doubt yourself when you're about to hit a trail? I only ask because I do every time. And I've got 8 weeks to go. I've got 8 weeks to go before I hit with the AT again. So do you doubt yourself?
Yeah, I think and I want to chime this back into the whole part about mental health is it's that whole cycle where you do doubt yourself and you push through it and you show yourself that you can do these hard things and you'll get through it and it's probably not that bad. And it's just showing yourself that you're capable to do these things, but oh my God, yes, I have severe anxiety before I start the trail. I think of all the what if scenarios to this day, even if it's a trail that I've been on before. Sorry. It's a fear. And I think that people forget that. Or at least from an outside perspective, you know what I mean?
I wasn't expecting to start getting nervous myself, but I've got 8 weeks to go, as I say. So I'm starting to get a bit nervous myself because, and yeah, I've done it. You know, I've done 5,000 miles on there, 5,000 miles on the Appalachian Trail alone. So I know my way around it. It's just that, you know, there's a nervous thing there. And your notes refer to a tight budget, and we all know that long hikes take a greater financial toll than most people realise in the beginning. How does the support from Hike the Good Hike ease that burden for you? What have they been able to provide for you?
Well, right now there's just conversation. I am full of transparency, so right now just support. There has been talk about certain gear. I carry really heavy gear. It's a little dramatic. I have a men's backpack. My brother was actually the one who gave me my first backpacking backpack 6 years ago. And I just don't buy if I don't need as a single parent.
Right, yeah.
I'll just say that out loud. It's not broken, so we're good right now. I'll just get stronger and I'll carry it. And also with social media and with everything that's just like the influencers, I will not just buy anything. I want to know that it's a quality product before I invest. But what I do know is that I need a woman's backpack. I know that I need the fit to support me. Like I can tell my body.
You can have a man's backpack, but it needs to be fitted for you. I mean, I'm a guy, and I people know this as well. My old backpack I thought was going to be a large because I'm a big guy. I'm 6'2" and heavy, but it was a medium because I went to be measured by. Be measured by the company, and it worked out they gave me medium. So if you're going to get one, if they're going to provide one for you, go and get yourself measured. It's well worth doing.
That's a thing. I know. That's part of the fear is I don't want to feel myself get fatigued out like that because of improper gear, and I'm not, Yeah, absolutely. And then, that's the backpack's like the biggest thing. It's so silly.
So what does carving out space for your passion, your passion for hiking, say about the example that you're setting your daughter? Is this something, what do you want her to learn by watching you do this?
No, I mean, I want her to learn a lot of things. I want her to see me for who I am.
Okay.
As like the strong, capable parent who makes these decisions though because they're healthy, because they're good in the long run, because parents are allowed to have passions. Sometimes we just get buried with crap and stress throughout the week that we just don't even go out and live. Yeah. So I want her to at least be able to see that life is out there. Happiness is out there. Adventure is out there. Even if she doesn't like see it right now. And that's coming back to the co-parenting schedule. I only have her during the week. So she doesn't get to really see this side of me.
Sure.
I want this person to break so free that she's like, that's my mom. You know what I mean?
So what does she think about you doing it?
I haven't told her yet.
Oh, really?
I haven't told her.
Oh, you better not let her hear this.
Well, it's just been, we went through Christmas and it was her birthday. I really don't focus on me until it's like really stressful. Yeah, I don't know how to share these happy moments when she's not there without her like feeling left out. Is a good way to put it.
Well, no, I think we've already said about the importance of making time for your own passion for hiking. That's what you need. Obviously, she certainly needs to understand that from you, her mother, that is strong enough to go out and do this, and then that should be a good example for her. I would think myself. I've been so impressed by the willingness of this cohort of hikers to open up about their mental health. What has sharing that journey given you as a person? I mean, are you open with friends in terms of your mental health?
Yeah, I'm pretty public about doing things to feel better mentally and physically because it's so goddamn hard. And like when people don't talk about things and try and honestly connect with what's going on internally, it's just hurtful to you and everybody else around you. And also like I want to connect as me. And that means mental health and all. Like, yeah. But it's not talked about. And I think that's the worst part is it's not talked about until it's too late. And people feel alone.
So when you are open to friends or even more remote friends, as it were, has openness changed how connected you feel to others?
Yeah. It's changed my relationships with people that I have now. And also, the willingness to connect and make friends. To know that everybody kind of has the same pickle, the same problems, the same hesitations, and
Yeah. Of course we do.
I know. It's easy to forget though when people don't talk about it. So
You're
I just
right.
want to be I want to be that person. Be like, I talk about it. It's going to be okay.
It's a very unsaid thing. That's why, to be honest with you, my putting together questions to people I don't really know, I've just read a paragraph about, is quite a tricky thing to do. And I'm trying to not make up a few, but I'm trying to go in a direction that I think that is going to be of value to people listening. And I'm hoping that people do relate to your story, especially other parents trying to make space for themselves. And because it's kind of important for people to be open to have conversations about things in my generation, we never did. We just never talked about anything like that. None. I mean, I've had so many revelations from my father before he passed about stuff that happened to my mother when she was younger. And I remember I was driving with him. I had to pull off the road. I was just so shocked about some of the things that my mother went through. So I'm kind of opening up to you a bit now, which perhaps is not a good thing. But, I think we never talked about it. So talking about stuff is real important. And when you finish your hike, whether it's 110 miles or the whole thing, which I highly recommend the whole thing, by the way, is there something you're looking to take away from the hike itself?
Yeah, I want to be able to take on any adventure without feeling so goddamn scared all the time. I want to be like, in the back of my head, I hiked 120 miles or whatever, I got this. And I'm already that kind of person. So I'm really looking forward to this. Just to push out any self-doubt. I mean, I know it's always going to be there, you know what I mean? But I would love to just stick it to
there's
it.
A healthy,
you know what I mean?
There's a healthy self-doubt, and it's always worth having some of that. So when have you got in your mind when you think you're going to start?
End of July.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, end of July, beginning of August. It's kind of maybe still the end of July, not quite August, but before my daughter starts school.
Right. Well, my plan is to, because I'm going to be out this year hiking the Appalachian Trail as well. So my plan is still to interview each of you of this group halfway through your hike. In your case, it won't be very, very long. So you'll be out there for about 10 days, you think? Mm-hmm. About 10, 11 days, something like that.
So, yeah.
I will make sure I have your number, and I will call you or text you a couple of days into your hike to say, when can we try to talk? You will not have service for quite a lot of the time. So it'd be a case of me trying to work out when I can speak to you. And if it doesn't work out, we'll have to do it just after. But look, I thank you for sharing, being open about things. I can see you were struggling with one of the questions because
I'm just
I
emotional.
Well, I could see you're emotional. I see you're sensitive, but I think the more you get out there, the more you indulge your passion. I think the more you'll enjoy it and you'll feel strong to do the things you want to do. So I appreciate you coming on, and we'll catch up and stay in touch. Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Cheers then.
Oh, bye.
Bye. As you could tell, that conversation wasn't without its emotional moments, but you could hear her determination to do this and face the struggles. Doing this by yourself must be particularly hard, so Tristen and all the Hike of the Good Hike members deserve a lot of credit for their candid responses to my questions. As I mentioned before, I know little about them before we record, so the conversation unwinds as I learn about them then and there. I can tell from your emails that these interviews have touched quite a nerve with several of you, and I just hope that we find, as I suspect that we will, that their hikes have enhanced their lives once they are done. I'm certainly looking forward to finding out. Now, my accountability blog ends the show this week. Not a big week, but a good one nonetheless. Here it is. My friend Hugh texted me this morning actually, and reminded me that my departure is no longer measured in months. Going forward, it's in weeks, not months, and soon it will be in days. To be honest, I hadn't looked at it that way, and when I think back to the time I started even thinking about this throughout this year, I still had about 4, maybe 5 months to go. As you know, I decided to make myself as prepared as I could be, got myself into a routine of training, and having a personal trainer once a week to keep me motivated. I think it's worked for me, although my daily check-in with my bathroom scale continues to disappoint me. Even though I lost about £6 last week, Super Bowl weekend didn't really help me. Each week I've been sticking with this 2200 calorie a day protein fest, then relaxing at the weekend and finding myself nearly back where I was. But today I got some concrete evidence that all the work I've put in at the gym is paying off. The scale still gives me bad news, but my blood pressure is 114/74, which is pretty darn good for me, and my pulse rate is a solid 70. Many of you will recall that I had a bit of a scare a couple of years back when my heart spiked dramatically up to over 190. It was 196 actually. This was eventually diagnosed as supraventricular tachycardia, or SVT, and the only reason I haven't talked about that recently is that it's become a bit of a non-issue for me. The last attack I had was in July 2024, and even though I meant to take medication as needed, and I will take some with me on trail just in case, it isn't something that makes me lose sleep. And while I'm talking about sleep, I don't think I've mentioned before that my doctor, who diagnosed me with sleep apnea about a year ago and gave me one of those Darth Vader masks to live with, my doctor has told me that it would be okay for me to go on this hike and leave the CPAP machine at home. I know you can get smaller, less obtrusive ones, but to be given permission to ditch it for half a year was one of the best bits of news I've received. And he's offered my training regimen, and he says that he could see that I looked well as soon as he came into the room this morning. I told him that I'll be shedding weight at an alarming rate in the next 6 months, just to let him get over the tails of the scales. And I also told him that my 5 to 8 cups of coffee a day will be down to about 1 or 2 at the most. So, a fairly fruitful visit with Dr. Coe, and he wished me well. I'd actually just come from the gym, where I continue to set up shop each weekday, and today was lower body day. This involves me stressing and straining my quads, my hamstrings and my glutes until they squeak. Then, and this is something I've never seen before until I started training, after those exercises, I'm supposed to use a foam roller. For the uninitiated, that means using my body weight, which, as I've said, is somewhat substantial, and rolling those leg muscles on top of this foam roller thing as a cool down. It does not cool me down in the least, and it bloody well hurts every time I do it. I just hope that the mountains of Georgia appreciate the work I'm putting in not to appear like a wuss in a couple of weeks' time. Try the foam roller. You'll hate it. You're welcome. I'm now getting the last few items of clothing and bits and bobs for the trip. This week my thermal leggings turned up from Outdoor Vitals. I've already got some for sleep, but these are meant to be worn underneath my trousers, and when I tried them, apart from being impossibly light, they performed really well. With the weather still in the grip of winter, I'm sure I'll be needing these for the foreseeable future, so that's good. The AWOL book turned up, and it was exactly how I remembered it. Good town info and an easy guide to use to help plan each day. I'm going to be studying it over these closing weeks so that I know what I'm really looking at each night, along with Far Out, which I imagine will be my main guide. One thing I noticed when I took my tent down the other day was that I could do with some guy lines to help stake out and batten down the tent in rough weather. I'll be heading to REI for that soon. I still haven't put my pack together yet, but it is definitely on an upcoming to-do list, so I haven't forgotten it. I think that's where I am at the moment. I feel I could head out now with a day or two's notice, and I think back to those earlier through hikes when everything was a last-minute job. While I'm happy to have been more disciplined this time, I don't think there's just one way to do this, and I bet I'd be equally safe out there if I did my couch to Katahdin routine once more. It's just that this time I'll be heading out here knowing that I have everything I need. Not sure if that makes it more likely that I'll succeed, but I like to think that it will. See ya. Just before I go, I wanted to give a shout out to my buddy Vegas, who was on the show I did at Alder late last year. Vegas had a climbing accident a few months ago and he's recuperating down in Anna Maria Island at his mum's home. So Dana and I went to visit him the other day and took him out to dinner. He's pretty immobile and I could tell straight away that it was driving him crazy not to be able to exercise or get around at all. He's got such a spirit and he was soon laughing and joking with us. I never hiked with him. He's 40 years younger than me, but he's still my brother. And Dana and I were so glad to hang out with him last weekend. It just goes to show you the unlikely friends you make when you hang around with hikers. I'll see you next week.